Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing today? This is Adam with TAT, and we are live. Chat is in full effect. Hello, everybody. If this is your first time joining one of my lives, we have live in full effect. So if you got any questions, you can go ahead and ask through chat or leave a question in the comments. How's everybody doing out there? Make sure to like, share the video. So if you got any questions, as I mentioned, you can ask them through chat. What's up, Transport? Or G-Rod's asking what's going on with Transport. He's probably be showing up here pretty quick. Guys, as I mentioned, I'm going to be going over some items here, but this is a live Q&A, so we will have chat on here that's going to be chatting in, and I'm going to try to get as much questions answered today and still cover the topic about fuel filters. So be sure to like and share the video. If you're watching, let me know where you're watching from. Like I mentioned, the channel is growing. It's pretty interesting to find. I have learned so much from the channel, for all the comments, guys. I apologize, I haven't got back to everybody. Chat, as I mentioned, let us know where you're watching from. I hope everybody is doing well and staying safe. Whichever way you feel about this pandemic, take regular precautions. I would suggest masks until we get things under control. There are more deaths, not only in the news, but I notice more in families as well. So guys, be compassionate about other beings so we can live and move forward. Thank you for all the support. We are over 11,000 subscribers. Merch is just about to be released, guys. So be on the lookout for masks, beanies, trucker hats, t-shirts, and mugs. Shout out to everyone that's made it out to the shop. I hope we were able to meet your expectations. We have the new shop under construction, 4140 Langdon Rd, Dallas, Texas, 75241. Be sure to stop by once completed. And if you'd like to schedule an appointment, make sure to call us at 972-225-3017. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6 p.m. Guys, what's going on? What's going on? Yo, what's up? I'm having issues. We speak. My truck's powering down, 7 hours of driving. It says check fuel filters. And I'm glad you're talking about this because fuel filters are very important. Today, we'll be discussing the importance of fuel filters. Guys, if you're going over 15K on your filters, this is not good practice, especially if you have high pressure fuel system, which most trucks are going to be high pressure fuel system. You're going to have, this is going to be DD13, DD15, Cummins, which is X15, X15. Any of these are considered high pressure fuel systems. Even a Volvo is going to be stepping up its fuel pressure inside the actual fuel injector. So keeping up with these fuel filter intervals is very important. And I want to mention, it's important because the high pressure pumps are actually using the fuel to lubricate the internals. I know I've mentioned to you this into some of my videos, but this is very important. Not changing your fuel filters can cause the fuel to actually be watery, and it's like having water in your engine oil. So a high pressure fuel system actually rotates at a higher RPM than the engine does. So when you're using diesel and it's relying on that lubricant, it's very important. Diesel fuel is already thin during the heat, but you also want to keep an eye on it during low temperatures. I know we talked about this last week, but the quality plays a big factor, especially when it comes with the diesel quality, and it falls out of specs really quick when fuel pressure actually when temperature actually drops. I'm seeing all these guys jumping on, and I'm missing all these comments. I want to be able to catch up to everybody. Honestly, I've seen people with bad QVC drive the truck for years, but it will wear out injectors and other parts, so can hold on a little bit, but not recommend for too long. So the quantity control valve, that's a good item that you're mentioning. The quantity control valve is when you're having a DD15 and it's idling up and down. Now we're talking about fuel filters. You know, during the summer times and in the winter times, especially if you're traveling from the south up north, you're going to have issues with condensation building up in the fuel tanks. That's where you're going to collect most of the condensation. Diesel actually during the winter time, diesel actually have combustible waxes already in them. So whenever the temperature actually drops, it actually drops out of the fuel and starts clumping up together, and that's why you get the fuel waxing on the fuel filters. The wax that's in the fuel is actually flammable, and it's part of the energy content of the fuel. So as I mentioned, when colder weather causes the waxes to drop out of the fuel and gel together, causes them to. It's actually called a cloud point. I believe that's what it's called. So my injector balance test. Thanks for helping us out. I'll get my mechanic to look into checking out. Let me catch up to some of these comments. I know I'm getting way behind. Whoa, bunch of comments, guys. Thanks everybody for joining us. Let me see here. What's up? I'll light it right up. It is live. Yes, sir. We got 30. Guys, make sure to hit that like button. If you learn anything from my channel, make sure to share the knowledge and share the videos so we can get more knowledge out to everybody that has a diesel truck. And if you are tuning in for the subject at calls, we're going to keep moving right along. I just want to try to catch up with everybody's comments here. Yes, sir. It's live. Finally, I can watch a live stream. What's going on? Thanks for joining us. Hello, I have two issues. High oil pressure, and grease tube broke off on my, what type of engine is that? That'd be good to know. What's up, bro? How you doing? Self to trucker. How's everything going? My 2014 DD15 is surging at idle. That's a quality control valve. It's basically what's transport mentioned. Long time. What's up, Adam? Adam, what's up? I want to make something clear. I have no problem with Trey. Anything bad I say about Trey, I'm joking. Nothing serious. Appreciate you clearing that up. We don't take it serious, guys. You know, and thanks for joining us, Transport. I want to get back to the subject at calls. Got another subscriber there, guys. We're already over 11,000 subscribers. I figured we were going to be at 12,000 by today, but I appreciate everybody joining us. As I mentioned, when you have the fuel, when you have temperatures drop and the fuel starts getting cloudy, these waxes actually, that's called cloud point. As the temperature continues to drop, lumps of the gel paraffin, it's actually paraffin wax, can form and cause large clumps and restrictions in your fuel filter and starving your fuel pump. This is actually just tear up your fuel pump. So preventive additives actually work to modify the structure of the waxes and keep them actually lubricated and keep them from sticking together, and they'll still be able to pass through the fuel filter during colder weathers. So this is very important if you're traveling upstate, and you want to make sure that you're checking your fuel filters every 10 to 15K, because as I mentioned, say for example, you start your trip in the lower states where you have it's actually warmer down here. It's still warm down here. Today, I believe it's like 70 degrees. And say, for instance, you make it up to Wisconsin or something up there and it's super cold. You know, that tank, those fuel tanks are going to end up collecting that condensation in them fuel tanks. And if you're going for extended intervals on your fuel filters, you're just waiting for that fuel pump to actually just go bad on you, man. Even if you had the fuel pump already replaced, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have a fuel filter or a fuel pump fail ever again. You know, it doesn't mean, hey, I had a fuel filter or a fuel pump fail at 500K. As soon as I replace my fuel filter, it's not going to fail again until another 500K. You still have to keep up with those fuel filters and replace them. Guys, if you're traveling through the lower states, make sure to come holler at us. I appreciate everybody that's come out and supported us here at the shop. Let me catch up to all these questions here. I appreciate you clearing that up, Transport. I'm going to catch up to everybody here. I'm having issues with a speak. My truck keeps losing power. After 7 hours, I keep checking the fuel pitch. Okay, so Mathis, what I would do is go ahead and replace the fuel filter. It's just been a while. Start with the most simplest items. Change the fuel filter. Most of the times, those fuel filters are going to get clogged up. And this is something I'd like to mention also, is the quality of the diesel fuel is important as well. You know, it varies from state to state, and heck, it varies from station to station. So if you understand that, you know, trying to understand what type of fuel you're running to your truck can be tough at times, not knowing what type of fuel you're running. So the only thing that a driver can actually do is keep up with your fuel filter intervals and actually using a good additive. As I mentioned, for drivers that are planning to start in warmer climates but travel through the colder areas, fuels can be, man, they can build up a lot of condensation in those tanks. So, you know, you want to be careful with those, and you want to be careful with the actual winter blends as well. There might be some areas that have winter blends already. Those fuels, they have treatment, but almost guaranteed not to be enough. So it's, you know, it's not adequate enough for the cold weather. So keep all this in mind, guys. It's very important. I appreciate everybody that's sharing all their information with chat. I want to make sure I can catch up with everybody, but I want to get everybody's information that's actually tuned in to know why we're talking about fuel filter intervals. And I want to get this information as much as I can out front so you guys can understand how important these fuel filters are. And it doesn't matter what engine you're running. You could be running a Cummins, you can be running a Paccar, Volvo. All this intervals is going to be included with all these platforms. So don't starve that fuel filter or that fuel pump and wait till it actually burns up on you, because a lot of times when it does burn up, it could take out other items. So Mathis, I appreciate that question. I would start off with the fuel filters and go from there. Thanks, Transport. David, how many miles is what he's asking. He says 600K is really when you're going to have, if you haven't had any issues around 500, 600K with fuel pumps, you want to go ahead and start keeping up with those fuel filters. 10,000 to 15,000. Don't exceed that. It's good practice to use fuel additives. Guys, if you want to share what type of fuel additives that you use it, leave it in the comments below, or you can leave it in chat. Now, there's a couple that I'd like to mention which are approved by Cummins, and I'm going to catch up to a couple of one of these questions. So keeping on with your fuel filter intervals and using a good additives, this is all good practice, guys. This is how you're going to be able to save your fuel filters. Strong opinion about what the Cummins. Okay, let me see if I could catch up. I can't wait to see the new facility completed and get a full inspection, oil change, and see what's on. We can't wait either. They're moving right along. We made the video I think it was yesterday. We're going to be doing some more videos. The building's coming by. You can still come and visit us, guys. We're going to be here till the end of December. 116 South Interstate 45 Service Road. Shout out to everybody that's came out and visit us. I hope we're able to meet your expectations. As I mentioned, new buildings coming in effect. I appreciate that. We can't wait to get it up and going as well. Hey, Adam, I'm from the Mediterranean. What's up? Is that MS? I may be mispronouncing that. I'm not too bad. I'm not too well with that. I brought my truck in last week. I appreciate that. Hope we were able to meet your expectations. I'm jumping around because I'm trying to catch up to everybody's comments here, but it is not letting me. There's so many comments. Let me see what I could do about catching up to them. Let me come back up here and do it here. Because, guys, I get kind of lost because there's probably 3 or 4 different screens I have up, and I want to keep up with the with all the comments, but it does get, as I mentioned, these comments that are showing up on the screen. There's actually more comments before those, and I want to be able to get everybody caught up. So finally, I get to watch a live stream. Welcome if it's your first live stream. Make sure to share the video. Shout out to everybody if this is your first time watching. Yo, Adam, you already got that. All right, here I am. Okay, I have a 2014 ProStar with Cummins ISX, and I hear a whistling sound from the RPM when it gets higher. Okay, wondering what it could be. So, Jayco, if you hear a whistling noise at power and you're making power, it's gonna be either an air-to-air leak, a boost leak somewhere going on. Check out my boost leak test video. That's a good test to run if you have low power. We actually started an SOP, which is if we're having issues with low power, we're going to be boost check is a very important test. And you want to check that. That's one of your basic checks. So over time, those hoses and those clamps could get loose and you can lose boost pressure. So honestly, check that out. What you can do is you can either run a regen and soap and water it, or you can put a boot on the intake side of the turbo and turn it on. OTR has a good boot that fits on a lot of different turbos, and that's a good tool to use if you want to do it yourself. If not, schedule an appointment and we could check it out for you. Adam, I need to bring my truck to sometime next week or a week after. It sounds like I have a partially stuck intake valve. Wow, only been engine in the code. It only happens in the code, and it sounds like you have a partially stuck valve. If it sounds like you have a partially stuck valve and it goes away when it warms up, I'd like to know what type of engine is that. And usually that's not going to go away when it warms up. Honestly, I have seen people with a bad, I think I've read this comment already, and it is. You can go with, if your truck is idling like that and it's a DD15, the QVC or QCV valve is what's causing that. But if you got high mileage, you might want to go ahead and replace that pump because it's not cheap to replace that. And that's why I would recommend going ahead and replace that whole fuel pump, because you don't want to spend that money on that valve and then later on it goes out. So I'm going to catch back up with everybody here. Diesel Clean is what I wanted to mention that's approved by Cummins. It's one that I noticed which is approved by Cummins. If you're going to use one that's you want to read up on it and research it. Now this one, Diesel Clean, is not a winterizer. It's not a winterizer or anti-gel. But what I do like about it, it does clean and lubricate is really the most important. You want to be able to add more lubrication in your diesel fuel, but without making it too thick. So as I mentioned before, with these new high pressure pumps, they use diesel fuel to lubricate the internals. So replacing your fuel filters before 15K and using a quality additive will help your fuel pump last longer. And since it's getting colder, and if you're on the lookout for those type of additives, fuel supplement, it's called Fuel Supplement Celtane Boost. Both are made by Power Source. So shout out to Power Source, and be sure to reach out to me for my royalties if you guys start moving over there for those. That's, as I mentioned, these aren't the only ones. If you want to use ones, if you've been using one for a long time and it works for you, that's fine. I'm not suggesting one or the other. Just be sure to read the instructions and follow, as I mentioned, follow directions. Don't use too much. You don't want to thicken up the fuel and do the opposite, which is going to cause you to have thicker fuel and you can have more restriction in your fuel filter. Thanks for helping us out. Yes, sir. MB, thanks for the comment. So my injector balance, okay. Yeah, is that a question? I'll get to my mechanic and look at it, getting checked out. Also, my injector balance test is all over the place and I can feel misfire. Change your fuel filters. He's saying he's running an injector balance test. I appreciate you sharing that comment. Check if you have an injector balance test that's not acting correctly, start with the basics. Start with fuel filters first. Change your fuel filters. If it's still there, then what I would do is run a test line from the fuel pump intake directly to just a 5-gallon bucket of fuel. And what this does is going to cancel out all the fuel lines that's coming from the pump going back to the fuel tanks. Because if you're getting air in the fuel system and it's getting from one of those lines, because I mean, guys, these lines have been under the truck since it's been manufactured, and they're nylon lines, so over time they can leak and they can get air. You want to visually check those lines. If they are leaking, most of the time you're going to see fuel leaks. But if you don't, check this out. Run this test to see if the balance clears up. If the balance doesn't clear up, you may have to run a return line or check inside the fuel tanks to see if you have aerated fuel. If you have aerated fuel, then this is something else you're going to be looking into. What type of engine is that? I appreciate that information. Good question. I appreciate that. I know you guys are slamming these questions at me, and I'm going to catch up to all the questions here shortly. I'm on a different screen. The ones that are popping up right here, I am going to get to them. I'm going to read them here and there, but I want to catch up to everybody that's already made comments. Shout out to everybody if this is your first time. And if you learned something from my videos, as I mentioned, make sure to share my information, share my channel. Let's share this knowledge, guys. I'm trying to get as much information as possible because I see guys come in with pumps going bad. And it's not cheap, guys. It's not cheap to replace these pumps. It don't matter what platform you have. Even with a Volvo, and say for instance you have a pump that goes bad on a Volvo D13. These Volvo pumps, they may, if you call the dealer and you say, hey, I need a Volvo pump, they're gonna sell you just a small pump, but it's best practice to replace the whole assembly, which includes the power steering pump, guys. So keep all this in mind. And this is why maintenance is very important. A lot of comments that I see on the channel about, repairs that are happening and stuff that's coming into the shop, you got to make sure that maintenance is being kept up. This is why maintenance is very key. If you have a particular platform that you have and you're new to that platform, take the time to learn what the intervals are going to be. And it's also it's also cautious, okay? Because I'm saying 10 to 15,000 miles. But when you look at the intervals, this is something you want to be careful with when we're talking about intervals on actual oil changes, because the manufacturers are going to suggest you go at a higher interval and you're using special type of oils and filters. And they're also going to mention to run an oil analysis. So be careful with these type of, and you're also going to be considered severe if you're doing any idling. If you can avoid any idling, I always suggest guys you avoid idling. It's very tough on these engines. They're not designed to idle. That's why they have idle shut off coming out of the factory. Hey, I have a question. I want to delete my DEF 2015 DD15 Freightliner. Okay, I released a video on that. Hopefully you watched that video and that helps you make your decision on that. Had oil tested, everything good. Viscosity is at 14.8. Can you help better understand how they measure? Well, viscosity, that is a video on its own. I'd have to do some actual research on how those actual machines are measuring the viscosity, but it's good that you're running your test. What type of issue are you having? I might have to jump back because you may have asked a question earlier and then added on to the question. So I apologize. I may have to catch back up to that. Hey, Adam, them brake pads and drums did the job. Great. I appreciate that. Self the Trucker. I remember you came in, you said that was pushing it to your right. And I appreciate you sharing that, because sometimes if you look at my DOT video, when I talk about how thick the brake shoes are, sometimes the brake shoes are going to get so hot because they've been there for such a long time that they'll start to cure. The surface will cure and it will not break anymore, and it will not actually wear. So you don't really have the actual braking power that you need, guys. So guys, as I mentioned, make sure to share the video. And we also are finalizing merch. We're very excited about merch. So be on the lookout for merch. We're going to be having hats. I'm going to be having hats, beanies. Hopefully we can get the hoodies out before it gets too cold, and stickers. So I appreciate everybody that's been sharing their experience, and I apologize that I haven't been getting back to everybody's comment. You know, it's tough to get back to everybody's comment because there's so much coming in through the channel, but I will get back to you guys. If you are in the lower states, be sure to visit us here at 116 South Interstate 45 Service Road, Hutchin, Texas, 75141, and we'll be moving into our new building at the end of the year. What's up from Miami? How you guys doing? I know you guys are staying warm. Hopefully we didn't get you guys didn't get too much going on. I changed the fuel filters twice within 2 days, but it keeps shutting down. I have 2005 VN. Okay, should I do? If it keeps shutting down, you're probably losing fuel pressure matches. I would get it checked out by an experienced shop that works on Volvos and troubleshoot that fuel system, because it sounds like to me you might be losing fuel pressure or air is getting into the system if you can't do the those Volvos where the fuel pump is. To get a test line in that fuel pump, it's a very tricky area. It's not really easy to do. Any of these pumps, it's not really easy to do. Sometimes you have to makeshift your own lines to get stuff done. What's your opinion on aftermarket filters versus OEM? Is 1,200 and 500 miles intervals okay? That's not too excessive. As I mentioned, don't go over 15K. I wouldn't go over 15K. If you're using aftermarket filters, just go with some name brand ones. Still, you know, name brand would still be with like Fleet Guard, Lubrifiner, any of those guys. You know, I know some of them are tough to find. Transport has a question that actually he's helping answer and match his questions. You sure O-rings are on correctly? There you go. He's basically mentioned, it sounds like you're losing fuel pressure, but I would test the pump, you know, put a test line going directly to the fuel pump to test the actual supply lines, because you don't want to dig into that engine when you have a fuel supply issue on a fuel line, and you dig into that engine, you change out fuel injectors, and you do all this extra work, and it ends up being a fuel line that's sucking air. Sorry, I have a 2014 DD15, high oil pressure, and grease turbine broke off throughout bearing. Okay, that sounds pretty. You're saying that the turbine oil pressure. Okay, so you had high oil pressure, and you got grease tube broke off the bearing. What grease tube are you talking about? I would like to know what's going on with that. I appreciate that question there. Fernando, I stay on I-20 and below. I'm done with the north. Okay, good information. Yeah, it gets dangerous out there, guys. If you're local, if you're in the region, you stay in Texas, Mississippi, and the lower states, you know, it's tough up there, guys. It's tough running up to the north, but you got to understand there's a lot of produce that's running up there. There's just a lot. I mean, not just only produce, everything that's coming in from the lower states, and even from East Coast and West Coast. A lot of stuff gets supplied up there. You know, we see a lot of stuff. We see a lot of stuff going up there, and it gets really tough. It gets really cold up there, guys. So as I mentioned, if you're running in the lower states and you're going up north, make sure to check the weather. You know, use a weather app. There's a weather app. It's very useful. The Weather Channel app. You can jump on there. You can check the states that you're going to and check to see if you got weather coming in. This is stuff that, guys, I'm pretty sure everybody's already doing. What's your take on Lucas fuel treatment? As I mentioned, any fuel treatment is good. You want to read and make sure it's going to be adding lubrication to your system, because that's your main focus during your warmer weathers, or if you're just from the south. And if you're from up north and you want to look for some winterizers, look at the label and read that information. You want to look for anti-gel. Any information like that is what's going to help you. If you're looking just for fuel additives, that you're going to be looking for lubrication. Now, we want to do our best to save these fuel pumps because they're not cheap. Not only are they tough to replace, but they're just expensive. They're really expensive pumps. In some cases, if you have a pump that fails, you might be in an area where you're not able to actually shut the truck down. You may be forced to drive it and cause more damage. Now you're looking at replacing injectors. So, hey, Adam, want to know, I have a vibration in my steering when pulling up a hill. If it's only happened when going up a hill, that may be a power issue. But if when I hear vibration in the steering, I hear this a lot. If it's happening at a certain mileage and it goes away, usually that's going to be a steer tire worn bad. So get your front end checked out, and it won't go away. If you say, for example, you have a steer tire that you've already replaced and it's already wore out and it's shaking, and you find out you have bad kingpins and you end up getting kingpins replaced, but you still have that bad tire on there, it's not going to go away. You're going to have to replace that tire. Once it's wore out like that, it's gonna be regular like that and keep on wearing. David, shoot DD15 filters can be used on, okay, yeah, also Donaldson. Sometimes this Donaldson's hard to find. Donaldson looked like they moved out of the filter market a while back. I run and watch it closely and still recommend 15% or 15,000 mile intervals. I appreciate that input. Aaron says he does that. He follows the intervals. Let me get a drink of water. I've been going. Man, I didn't know you were up in the Big D. I'm over in Arlington. Man, you're right up the street. I've been having an air leak. The valve under the dryer was replaced. Man, come by. Come give us a shot at it. Let me see. I lost a spot. Let me find my spot back. Here it is. Okay. So you got a leak. Yeah, sometimes it can be tricky. What's left only when the truck turns off. Okay, it may be check out your there's a solenoid that runs your fan clutch, and check out your fan clutch, because if you have a leaky fan clutch, that's usually what happens, and those are tough to find. I have a 2011 D13 engine, also hard to start morning, and temperature gauge dropped down to 130 when cold and going uphill. So 130's cold, yeah. If you're having issues at startup, I'm doing a video for a D13 Volvo. We're going to do parts location, and I'm going to be giving some information on those particular engines. On a D13, you know, I don't want to suggest you know, exactly what it could be, just because, say, for example, it could be the fuel filter housing. You know, here at my shop, we do tests to check to see if it's the fuel filter housing getting air, because it's not a cheap fix. But if it's high mileage, 2011, you haven't changed the fuel filter housing before, that's probably something you want to look into. As I mentioned in my other videos, I would test the items before condemning them, guys. Do not condemn items before testing them. I know it's tough. If you're going to be doing it yourself, you're not going to be able to test the items. That's why it's important to use an experienced shop. Hey, Adam, what's better in your strong opinion about what's better engine, Cat C15 or Cummins 15 ISX? Well, you know, Cat, depends on what year. I wouldn't do a cert, and if it's the ISX 15, depends on what year. You know, if it's after the updates, I would go ahead. If it's any of the newer, you know, if it's right, you know, at the younger stage before they had the changes and the updates, I probably wouldn't go. I wouldn't go with that. And also, I mean, it depends on the condition of that C15. You know, that's an older engine. It's tough to find a good condition C15 Cat. And if you're looking to buy something, that's something that you're going to be looking into as well. I know this is off the subject, but you show how to set valves on the, okay, that's a good, you know, I am going to be doing videos on, as you can see, guys, we got the construction going on. I'm doing the video on the on the Volvo, and I'm trying to get some quality stuff to you guys. I want to get as much information in the videos. So I know it's taking us a little bit to get more videos out to you guys, but as soon as construction settled down, I think we're going to be able to pump out some more videos. So valve adjustments is something that I would like to do. ATF on Marvel Mystery Oil. Okay. Oh, you're talking about automatic transmission fluid in your oil. You know, I wouldn't recommend any of that, or any of your fuel. I would definitely look into that. I would need to look into that a little bit more. ATF. You know, what I don't want to do is make, if you're traveling in the colder areas, or if it's going to get colder, you don't want to make the fuel thicker, because that's going to cause more starvation, guys. So as I mentioned, you know, I'm trying to catch up to everybody's comments. There's a lot of great questions here. I want to catch up to everybody. But as I mentioned, you know, if you learn this stuff from my channel, make sure to share the knowledge. As I mentioned, if you're in the lower states, come check us out Monday through Friday, 972-225-3017, 8 to 6, guys. I believe so. I can consider condensations in my passenger side tanks. I've got to change it twice. Should I get a flush on the fuel system? If you do see air in your system, you need to be troubleshooting aerated fuel. That sounds like you have aerated fuel, so that's what I would definitely check for. If you do have bubbles on your return line, I always change my fuel filters, and I did. I was black at dirt. Okay, black and dirt. I drain all my tanks every night. Lucas on every fuel filters. Good stuff. Thanks, Army guy. Army says Army's just basically sharing all his precautions, all his safety precautions. I mean, you want to save these fuel pumps. They're going to be delicate. These fuel pumps are rotating at a higher RPM than the engine's rotating. So the fuel is very, very important. Lubbock, discuss your oil change services prices. You could check our prices on our website. Check out my website, www.tatexpressinc.com. Prices are kind of tough because everybody's changing prices here and there. You know, oil's changing, so oil prices are changing, but we usually keep our PMs pretty solid, so check those out. Kenworth, and also our PMs are going to be included with the digital inspection, which is an inspection that's going to be sent to your truck or sent to your phone, and you're going to be able to view this anywhere. And when you get an inspection, or when you get an interval done here, or a PM interval, or any kind of any service done here, you're gonna get something done by a guy that's a technician. He's not just somebody that was trained on oil changes and know how to do oil changes. So he knows what to look for. He's gonna be able to check out and do your inspection. Look out for the rust, bleeding, everything that I've mentioned in all my other videos. Shout out to everybody that's come by and gave us a shot. Kenworth, 2,000 miles, fuel filter, 2020, ISX, transmission fuel filter. Okay, I appreciate you sharing that. Rocker box redone, no metals in the oil, good job. Yeah, you don't, anytime you get like some repairs done, if you have repairs done on a DD15, for example, and you have low oil pressure, because that's pretty common. Low oil pressure is very common on a DD15, and most of the time it's going to be the O-rings. But when you do the service, say for example, you do the service, you drop the pan and you find metals, that's an indication that you have something else worn. Now, the low oil pressure may not have been from the hardened O-rings. They could be from actual worn out. You know, most of the time it's going to be the rocker box is worn out, because there's not bearings on the rocker box. On a DD15, that's dual overhead cam. You know, you have the steel cams that are riding on the aluminum rocker box. So when you have those cold starts in the morning and that oil is not making it all the way up, or it's not warmed up, it's not lubricating enough, and you may be adding additives that are making the oil thicker, this is the type of stuff that's going to cause issues to the DD15s. And in any of the platforms, you want to really read what you're adding to your oil. This is why there are some good stuff out there. There are some nice, you know, additives out there, but just make sure you're reading and everything that you're doing before you add this stuff. Don't just add it and keep on moving, especially the quantity or the quality, how much you're adding. You don't want to add too much and make your fuel way thicker, and then you have issues. Should I drain my fuel tanks? If you see that your fuel tanks have a lot of water in there and there's a lot of condensation, you may have to drain your fuel tanks. Yes, fuel tanks are tough to clean out. If you have a lot of dirt in your fuel filter or your fuel tanks, and you may have to get those fuel tanks cleaned out, and that's actually getting them flushed out, pulling them off and flushing them out. It's very tough, because at the bottom of the fuel tank, they don't make anything to actually flush these tanks out. There's a small plug, probably like this large. It's not that large. And so if you have a lot of buildup and you want to clean a fuel tank, you know, imagine where your fuel tank is located on the truck, and being able to clean it out of a hole like this, it's very tough. And in some cases, if it's so much buildup inside that tank, you might have to replace that fuel tank. In very extreme cases is what I'm mentioning. So another thanks for taking your time and share your knowledge and answer questions. You could be drinking beer and yelling "Go Bills," but you're here with us. KM, I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I know a lot of you guys are this is the time you're actually watching. So, you know, we started lives on Sundays a while back, and you know, I've really been liking, and you know, the subjects that we're talking about, I try to share as much information as I could at the beginning of the video. So if you guys are looking for this information on why it's important to replace these fuel filters, we're going to start sharing information closer to the beginning of the video, because I know these videos can last long. But I have a good time. You know, we got chat. Everybody's coming on. Everybody's asking their questions. I want to be able to make sure I can answer everybody. So we're going right along. If you got questions, make sure to ask them here. And I'm trying to catch up to everybody. So here we're going right along here. So yeah, Hot Shot, you know, thanks for sharing that, Frederick. The only, you know, with Hot Shot, make sure, as I mentioned, shout out to Hot Shot, make sure to read directions. Hot Shot, I had an M14 a long time ago that I was having a miss, and I believe it was probably already going bad, but when we used Hot Shot, it killed like 2 injectors. So if you do have something that may be on the verge of getting bad, Hot Shot may be go ahead and push it over the edge. But hey, I mean, as long as you're doing it in an area that you have a shop, then maybe, you know, you won't have any issues going down the road. Are lubrifier filters okay compared to Donaldson or Detroit? Check out the specs on the fuel filter. You know, these fuel filter manufacturers are very competitive, so they're changing their way of doing things. So they're able, you know, what they really do is they backwards design their filters. So they'll grab a Donaldson filter or a OEM filter, and they'll cut it in half, and they just basically, and they do the same thing with rebuild kits. They just backward design them, and then, you know, it's not bad. I mean, they are cheaper, and they, you know, and the dealers are the ones that are supplying the vendors are the ones supplying these items. I haven't had any issues with some bad filters. Lubrifiners, I haven't had any. I see more fleet guards now. Lubrifiners are kind of going away. Donaldson, they kind of went away a while back. I know some areas have more Donaldsons than other. It just kind of depends on where you're from. But stick with name brand if they are aftermarket. Should I drain your fuel tanks? I answered that. Rear end and swap it. Okay. It's a DD15. Never had an overhead done, and I'm thinking about time to get it done. If it's 660K, it is suggested that you do your overhead valve adjustment at 500K. If it's missing like this, you're mentioning a misfire, that's the overhead's not going to do that. It sounds like a fuel issue. Like here at my shop, what we would do is run a fuel integrity test, which is what we would run with the I'm sorry, I got a message here. Sorry about that. So what we would do is run a fuel integrity test with Triple DL, and this is going to run it through all its different tests. It's going to run it at high pressure, lower pressure. And in this case, what we're going to be looking for is when the system actually shuts down, we're going to be looking at how rapid the fuel pressure drops at key off. So when the engine's off and you got the key on, engine off, and you look at the fuel pressure after you have the engine off, and I believe it's 30 seconds. We have to see how much pressure you're dropping. If you drop down to 10 bars right after key drop, that means you have an internal leak somewhere. If you don't have an internal leak during that test, you may have a fuel supply issue, which it could be from the pump down or from the fuel filter housing. If you did change your fuel filters and you have an older housing, in some cases those O-rings might not sit right, and it'll cause that engine to act bad like that. So make sure to double check your fuel filters. Even if you just replace the fuel filters, if it's something this is what I've learned in my time of being a diesel technician. If something you repair ends up acting up afterwards, if you do, you know, say for example, you want to do your fuel filters and your engine was running just fine. You did your fuel filters, now you have a miss. More than likely, that's where your problem's going to be in with your fuel filters. Don't worry about trying to run somewhere else. Yeah, it's possible it could be, but the chances of it being something that just happened, and you could see this in troubleshooting manuals as well. In the troubleshooting manuals, it mentions this right away. Was there any repairs recently done? If so, check those items. Those are items you want to check for. So, you know, installing a fuel filter, there could be an O-ring that doesn't seal correctly. Could be something that broke. There could be something that's not working correctly. My truck just driving 5 miles per hour. DEF light is on. Check engine light. Freightliner DD15. I have 7 days in shop up now. Nothing happened. Okay, so, you know, that's a tough job. I remember you're having issues. With this Shirley MB. Sorry if I mispronounced that. MB, and if you're having an ongoing issue, it may take a couple of times to get checked out, but make sure you're checking it at the right shop. If it's a Freightliner and you're having after treatment problems, it's what it sounds like. You know, make sure they're running all your tests, your DEF tests. I notice sometimes the dealers are not running all the tests completely. Check out that video that I released and those tests. What's up? Shout out to William. Thanks for the sub. Guys, I know if you already subbed to us, I appreciate everybody's support. If you learned anything from my channel, make sure to share the video, share the information. I got D13 parts location video coming out. It's got a cool video. It's going to be the whole D13 video, D13 engine out of the truck. So you're going to be able to see everything. That video is coming out, so be on the lookout. Do you know where I can convert 6x2 to 6x4? I do not. I'm sorry about that. MB, I would need some more information. If it's an ongoing problem with your after treatment system, you know, that's going to be something I would need to know. What type of troubleshooting steps that they took, what did they check, what didn't they check. This is all important information. Hey, Adam, from Miami, just changed my fuel pump and all 6 injectors, older truck, next year M-frame. Okay, good. Fernando, why'd you end up changing those the fuel pump and fuel injector? But thanks for sharing that. The company I work for is only doing oil change once a year, now a DD15. So Oliver, thanks for sharing that. You know, most of these fleets are going to be doing that. They want to save money. We do service for a lot of fleets, and we've seen a lot of we've serviced a lot of fleets, and we do service for fleets, but some fleets we do see some extended intervals. We don't recommend that. You will be seeing some problems, especially with the after treatment systems, if you're going with extended intervals. I know that everybody wants extended intervals, and it's better, but you got to think about this, Oliver. When you're dealing with fleets, they're dealing with multiple trucks, so most of the time they're going to be saving their money on services, so truck washes, services like that. Just keeping an eye on my oil, but I was blowing in a little blue smoke at idle and warms up, goes away. If you have okay, so you're deleted. If you're deleted and you're blowing out smoke, I don't know what type of delete you got. I've seen some makeshift deletes. I've seen some deletes that just poke holes in the filters. And honestly, that's not the right way to delete these systems. The right way to delete this system is going to be completely eliminating the filter on its own, because if you only do a hole in the filter and you're basically trying to trick a sensor to read the back pressure. But what happens over time is you're not running the truck at maximum performance. So if you're over fueling and you're getting white smoke coming out, Aaron, I can only suggest that you get it checked out. But I don't know. I don't know the history of the truck, so it's kind of hard to say. It is deleted and you're getting out white smoke, so that's something that you might need to be looking at. Thinking of starting a business, just changing tires for dump trucks and tractors. Think it's worthwhile doing? It's up to you, Justin. It depends on all your overhead. Depends on what area you're in. This is replacing tires. There's a lot of competition out there, so definitely take a look at what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it, where you're going to get even your supplies at. The tires are a commodity right now. Rubber is like becoming gold. Tires are expensive, so even the used tires, a good source of used tires, is hard to find. And used tires are tough. We stopped carrying used tires years and years ago just because I just feel bad on putting a used tire on there, and if something happens to it and it blows out, that's just a lot of time and effort to put a tire on. And so most of the time we just offer new tires. So keep all this in mind. Thank you for the comment. What about oil pan heaters for the? I did hear on last week's live. If you didn't hear that, this guy was running tank heaters on his tank. I don't know if you remember that. This guy was running tank heaters on his fuel tanks and a blanket heater, or having his engine plugged in. Imagine that. And here we are thinking 30, 40 degrees is cold. Hey, Adam, I have a DD15. I recently bought them done and a new oil pump, and my oil pressure is extremely high. Where'd you get that done? I noticed, DD15s are very, very, their specs are very tight. And what happens is you can get contamination during an assembly. So if you have high pressure oil happening after an assembly, as I mentioned a while ago, it may be happening right around, because of the repair. I noticed, in some videos I've seen where they just cake up that grease on those bearings. That grease is really thick. That grease is made for these older engines, and it's fine. You can put a thin line, but if the oil galleries get clogged with this grease, you can have high oil pressure. You can have starvation in some of the areas, and if you have oil starvation on a piston journal or a main bearing, that's it. That engine's done. There's no coming back. What about oil pan heaters up north? I think I got to that already. Don't use lubrifier filters. That's probably why my vendors probably got rid of them. I appreciate that, Transport. They are the worst filters. They will break up inside. See other YouTube videos online. And the brands, Adam, I hope it ain't using them. I'm glad you mentioned that. We're not using lubrifier. Thanks. Shout out to Anthony if you're watching. That's one of our vendors. He stopped supplying lubrifiers to us. I'm glad we're able to get. I'm glad we have people like our vendors in place that are keeping us up to date with everything. But yeah, lubrifiers were older filters back in the day, and lubrifier actually had a pretty stout sight for crossing the filters. So maybe they're not up to par no more. Who knows? Don't forget, I know sometimes there may be some times where they have like a batch of stuff that were bad, and they may have went back and replaced them. Hell, they do it with everything. I mean, look at they're doing it with the diesel engines now. Look at the airplanes. I think they have The 747 Max is actually now being able to be back online again. So, and that's a major component that was failing and causing major failure. So that's normal. That's normal what manufacturers do. Shop loves using them because those filters are cheaper in price. Well, you know, it depends on where you're getting your filters. On the vendor side, you know, most of the time vendors are going to give you a good deal, but they don't always just cut corners. You know, this is why, if you guys, shout out to everybody that runs a shop. You know, if you're out there running a shop, or if you're, shout out to everybody that's running a fleet. I know you guys get all these people out from under the sun that come and try to sell you their oil, their filters. And I know it's tough to make a decision, guys, but you know, stay with the name brand stuff. There's going to be a lot of people out there trying to sell you all these oils, all these different lubricants that do the same thing. Don't trust it, guys. Be thorough on what you're buying when it comes to filters and everything like that. So good point there, Transport. I appreciate that. Don't forget fuel pressure valve. Yeah, that is a good point. Shops love using them. I got that. Let me make a marker here so I know where I'm at. Just seen mine. They have to drop the whole oil pan. I know the oil is still good, but they replaced pickup tube and the 4 rubber washers. Good job, Army. Thanks for sharing that. Hi Adam, Kevin here. I have a 2012 DD15. I'm having cooling issues. Okay. I have residue lines from both of the coolant caps on the coolant reservoir, as well as it is spraying from the another side. It sounds like you have cross contamination. It's possible it could be injector cups, or it could have some issues going on with your EGR cooler if it's a DD15. That's a very common problem if you have a lot of cross contaminations on the injector cups. I did an injector cup video. I know that was a quick video that I did on those injector cups, but check it out. And basically that video was just to mention that you don't want to condemn parts before testing them, guys, because as I mentioned, and guys, I want to be careful about what I say sometimes, because if this guy is mentioning he has coolant contamination and I say it could be injector cups, you know, don't go tell your mechanic, hey, injector cups, replace the injector cups, and it's something else, because you do have a fuel cooler as well, which has been bypassed by DD15 or by Detroit. Get these items checked out and tested before you condemn them, okay? Because if you do injector cups and it's not the cups, that's an expensive job, and you still have coolant issues. I don't want to be blamed for that. You can do a video on overhead on my truck once I bring it in. Yes, we can schedule that in. We don't do too many videos because honestly, guys, not everybody is made for the camera. It took me, I even have practice. It takes me even more practice to learn more on the camera and make sure I'm presenting the information that I need to present, because we do get excited on the camera. People act different on camera. So you gotta be, you know, when I'm putting a camera on a technician, is what I mentioned, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So shout out to my technicians that have been on camera, and I know that it's not easy and it does get a little bit nerve-wracking. It's not nerve-wracking, but you can be nervous with the camera because you're thinking about what you want to say. You want to make sure you're doing everything right. You're thinking about the video, and you're already thinking about mechanic work. So shout out to, but a good idea. We do want to do some more videos during the week. And this is why I'm going to set up with the new shop. We're going to have solid lighting. Like here, the lighting in this shop is there's a lot of light bulbs that are out. It's an older building. We're only here to the end of December. So we're going to be moving. Shout out to everybody that's came and visit us now. We do have everything set up here. So if you do need service before December, come and shout us, come look at us. Make an appointment, 972-225-3017 if you're traveling through the lower states. Interstate 20 going through Texas, Dallas to be exact, if you're going to be in this area. I know if you're traveling through this area, there's tons of freight in this area, guys. So the area is very well developed when it comes to access. There's a lot of big turns, or big highways, big U-turns, truck stops, everything, fuel stations, everything you need down here. Even things that you don't want. What's up? Questions? What's your question? Transport's asking your question. I'm not sure what. Okay, let me see here. I should clarify, I run 1 quart of ATF per tank. Okay, so he's running 1 quart. I appreciate you clarifying this, because when the messages come through and they're very short like that, I don't want to misinterpret it. And I've looked at some of my older lives and I always misinterpret some of the stuff that you guys are saying. So now I'm trying to calm down and take my time to read what you guys are saying, so I can. So what you're doing is sharing what you're using. So you're putting you know, and I'm not saying I recommend this, but if it's working for you, go ahead. So you're using ATF in your fuel during the winter, and you run power service on white bottles. Okay, good. I appreciate you sharing that. Hi, Kevin. I have a 2017 ISX, and I just noticed a high idle. The turbo whistling fluctuates rapidly, but no codes. Would there be an actuator possible going bad? You know, if it's an ISX, any of these newer engines that have after treatment systems with a DPF filter, and you have a VGT style turbo, some of these engines even have throttle valves. I don't think that ISX is not going to have a throttle valve. It's a 2017. You know, that's a brand new truck. If it's idling up and down, check the fuel filters. You may have are you sure it's not regenning? Is it idling up and then staying there? Completing the regen and going down, or is it fluctuating? Check your fuel filters. I noticed even with the ISX15s or the X15s or newer engines, guys, you want to keep up with these fuel filters. This is, you know, the topic of this video. We're talking about fuel filter intervals, and you've heard these stories on these ISX. So the only way to actually prevent this stuff from happening, and it's worse with ISX. You're lucky. You're like rolling the dice with ISX. Or either one of them, you're rolling the dice whether or not you're going to be able to keep your injectors or not. I know most of the literature is going to tell you to replace your injectors, but guys, have a fuel pump go out on you and have a technician tell you got to replace all the injectors. That's not fun. That's not a good feeling to hear. So trying to keep those injectors going, if you can, to save some money is I know, guys, is not going right exactly by the book. But, you know, as I mentioned, we service a lot of fleets. So, you know, we kind of see what guys are using and what fleets are using to kind of see what's going on. If you do have a pump that's failed, you know, literature is going to tell you to replace. Detroit's going to tell you to replace. You know, if you want to replace all fuel injectors, go ahead. If you don't have the money, you may want to go ahead and keep trying them. But shout out to everybody that's joined us today. If you haven't shared this video, make sure to share and like the video. I'm not sure how many likes we have so far. I don't want to jump around screens because I'm trying to keep up with everybody that's asking questions here. Thanks for the input. Coolant residue on my DD13. Forgot to mention, when I turn my truck off, the air seems to drop out quickly, but not while driving. Sounds like the air is dumping into my one box. Okay, well, that's normal air. That's a purge. Purge is going through your one box. So, and depending on what style system you have, it sounds like you have air over DEF. So when air is getting transferred to the DEF or to your one box system, it's using air over DEF. So when you turn the key off, it's gonna purge. It's gonna purge because it doesn't want that DEF to dry up in that valve and cause it to get clogged up. So yeah, that's normal. You're gonna hear air coming out of your one box while your truck is off. That's the purge working. That's it doing its thing, so it doesn't. So that DEF doesn't dry up in there. And then what you're going to happen if it wasn't doing that, or if you didn't have that happening, you're going to have a clogged up dozer, and then you're going to have NOx conversion faults. Truck shaking while driving, Western Star, DD15. That's a really new truck, 2017 DD15. I would check your tires. Make sure your tires, and if your tires are in good condition, check your brakes as well. Sometimes those brakes, as I mentioned earlier in the video, can be warm to a point where they get so hot that the surface actually hardens. That's a pretty new truck. I mean, 3 years depends on if it was team driven. You know, it all depends on the condition of the engine. We can't always go by the year. We got to look at the condition of the engine. We got to look at what type of work was that truck used for. If it was used, you know, for some team driving, as I mentioned, that truck is nonstop, 24/7. Just like everybody's buying, there are some trucks that are out there running. You know, Amazon is running all the time. Food is running all the time. Grocery stores are needed all the time. Some areas, some trucks are needed all the time. Tank fuel, 158 gallon truck, and the other hand. Okay. Oh, that's my viewer out there from Vietnam. Shout out to Vietnam. Thanks for joining us. That's my viewer out there out of Vietnam. He's always making comments, and I have to get them translated. And sometimes I'm not able to do that. I'm only able to do that on desktop. So Hopefully, shout out to out there in Vietnam. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody's staying safe, guys. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I don't want to get too far into the pandemic. It sucks that it turned political and not pandemic, but keep an eye on it, guys, because there's some stories that are starting to hit pretty close to home. And it makes me have a different view on the situation, because, you know, there's some sad stories out there. You know, there's a guy, there's somebody that I know that was pretty close to retirement and caught this, and it does a lot of damage to the older folks. And what happens is the damage happens. So when it happens and it actually runs its course and they treat you, it depends on your health and it depends on your condition. It hits everybody in a different way, but it can cause enough damage where your body's actually starting to react different. Your blood pressure starts to rise because your body's acting different. So I don't want to get too far into this, but, you know, it can affect some people, guys. So I shout out to anybody that's been affected by this. This is very sad. Hopefully we're able to get through this. And I do pay attention a lot on what's going out there, not just locally, but throughout the world. And I just do this just because I like to see, I like to see the pattern, guys. Let me fix my hat real quick. I like to see the pattern. Shout out to China in Focus is one of the channels I do watch. And I'm not like, hey, you know what, pro-China or anti-China, guys. I'm not that type of person. But what I do like to see is what's happening in the other parts of the country, because what I notice, you know, when you look at what happens in other countries, and I've mentioned this before, it happens in this area as well. And it's already happening up north. If you're from New Jersey, if you're from the upper state areas, you're already hearing shutdowns again. So don't be surprised if shutdowns are starting to happen again. This is going to happen. This is real. They're basically calling it a COVID winter. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, guys, but I do want to mention all this because I didn't mean to flex on you guys like that, but I did want to mention all this because keeping up with your truck, keeping up with your time, keeping up with all this is a lot of stuff to keep up with. You know, being a truck driver, you guys got a big responsibility. You guys are the front line. We are considered the front line. We are the frontline workers. When I mentioned the food, the buying, everything, if we have a shutdown again, we're the ones that are going to keep working. We're the ones that are going to keep moving. So keeping up with all these different safety precautions, keeping up with your maintenance, this is going to keep your downtime to a limit. It's going to keep your downtime to a limit. But you also, you know, you don't want to catch this virus, you know. So take your precautions. That's something that's really going to put you down. Shout out to everybody that did get affected by this. And I know that everybody has your opinion. I don't mean to, well, if I offend somebody for bringing up this pandemic, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. This is real stuff, guys. This is real people that it's affecting. Back to the trucks. Let's get back to the trucks. Sorry for ranting on about that. Man, I wish I was in your area. I need a PM. I use Rotella. Rotella's a good oil. Rotella they released T6 and T4. I'm sorry, T5 and T6. These are all CK5, CK4 and above. These oils were released to basically designed for these engines, designed for these delicate engines. They're not actually delicate, but they're losing material because they're making them lighter, guys. This is all things that they're using. The lighter the engine, the more fuel you're going to be able to, or the more energy you're going to be able to get out of that fuel as you're pumping. So, you know, technology is just advancing with weight. They're using everything they can. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that comment. Fat Boy Lifestyle says, I just picked up a 2013 Freightliner Cascadia, 712 miles on it with a DD15. My engine brake isn't working at all. Can it be an electrical problem? It can be an electrical problem, or it can be out of an adjustment Jake brake. Did you get the truck checked out before you bought it? $712K. I wonder what you paid for it. I'm really interested to know. At 2015, 2013, as I mentioned, this time right now is a very tough, high volume time. There's a lot of trucks being bought right now and seek. There are a lot of trucks being looked for right now, seeked after. Their manufacturers are backed up right now. We're gonna see what happens. There is some money, as I mentioned in my last live, that needs to get released, because there are some areas that are going to get affected more as these outbreaks start to return. And if there's not money being released, we're going to see some more stuff happening, guys. So shout out to everybody that's joined us today. We have Vietnam online right here. Let me see if I can read his question. This is one of my viewers from Vietnam. Shout out to Vietnam. I hope you guys are doing good. I would like to visit Vietnam one day. Engine Mercedes-Benz MB 4000 truck, Sterling, Canada. And the other hand. So he's basically trying to communicate with us. Of course, we're here in America, and I appreciate your question or your question or your statement there, your comment. There it is. And Vietnam is, a lot of times I see like the older engines start making it to these other countries and they're using them because, you know, they're either not being used here in the United States no more, and they're just being exported. I see that pretty often, and I see that through the channel as well. What about adding on bypass oil filter on a DD15? You know, keep up with what you have already before trying to add. Like if you like, what, this is what I would do. If you want to add a bypass filter to extend your filtration system, you know, I would probably try to save the money and just do your oil changes or do your oil analysis. Run the fuel bypass filter. Run the fuel bypass filter and run oil analysis test and see if you're going to get what you want out of the situation, okay? Because if you want extended longer oil change intervals, you got to understand that the filtration is still happening. Of course, the soot is making it in the oil. It still has to be removed from that filter. So, you know, do tests on oil samples to see what you get. If you're doing it for an extra precaution, that may be good. If you're doing it for, you know, because you want to go the 50,000, then I don't know. I would suggest doing it with an oil sample. I'm not saying it's not being done, and I'm not saying it's not good for the engine, but I don't have enough tests in front of me or enough research on my side to be able to recommend that for you. And I may be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right. I hopefully I don't, guys. I hopefully don't think that I know everything. I don't know everything. As I mentioned, as soon as you think you know everything, that's whenever you exactly when you stop learning. Shout out to everybody that's shared your experience and shared your information. I've learned so much, guys, from you guys. That, you know, I know I haven't got back to everybody's comment, but it's tough to get all this information, all this content ready and scheduled, making sure the shop is running correctly as well. Shout out to Francisco Rocha, the manager here at this location. We're going to be getting him on camera one day so you guys can meet him. Everybody, all the technicians that work hard, we appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate everybody's support and everybody's hard work. I have a problem on an ISX 2007 black smoke. Okay, so black smoke either is going to be oil or excessive fuel. It's going to be either one. And I've seen these with the Cummins. If it is a Cummins, you did say Cummins. I've seen this a lot. I've seen the actual valves go bad. The valve seals in the head, and the oil just comes through the head. And if you know what I'm talking about, of course you have the head and the valves are in the head. And the way that the valves are being pushed down is the rockers on top of the head. Let me get a drink of water. So those valves are going to need oil. And if that oil is not there, of course the valves are going to get wore out and the rockers are going to get wore out. Now the seal is what keeps the oil from dropping into the cylinder over time, and it can happen through, you know, it can happen rapidly if you have a failure, if you have excessive crankcase pressure, if you have a crankcase filter that's clogged up and you're not ventilating the crankcase correctly, or you have a failed air compressor that's pumping all this air into your oil system. This can cause or a bad turbo. Any of this can cause excessive pressure in your crankcase and cause your seals to leak. When that happens, they don't just reseal themselves. This is something that has to be repaired. And if it's a high mileage, this is something that's going to happen, that could happen. But as I mentioned before, you want to test before condemning, guys. I'm not saying you have a bad head, but definitely check out everything else. I have a problem. Okay, hey Adam, I recently had a bottom end done on a 15 oil pump. I think I answered that one question. Need you to check my wires to my starter, and I'm gonna need that crankcase filter changed. Okay, we'll check it out. We'll check your battery, especially if it's getting cold, man. If you're having a hard start, those are indications you may have a bad starter. Don't ignore issues that are happening like this, because I see this where, you know, you get tied up, you get busy, you don't want to take it to the shop because of the downtime. Give us a shout. We'll do our best to schedule you in and out. Let us know, hey, my time is my time is tight. Can you get me in? For troubleshooting, we can't do this as much, guys, because troubleshooting, you know, we're going to have to figure out what's going on with the truck. We got to get the history on the truck. If we're doing just a quick repair, that's something that we can get scheduled in and out, guys. So if you do have an issue with a hard start, self the trucker, and is giving you an indication you might have a failure, get that checked out. or it could be a bad starter. Thanks for the advice. Great info. I appreciate that. Nick, Jordan, don't buy 2012. 2012, very bad. Thanks for sharing that. Hi, Adam. Thanks for the input on the coolant residue. Forgot to mention, I think I got that one already. Thank you, Adam, for answering my question and explaining them as well. I will schedule an appointment and bring my truck as soon as I can. Have a great weekend. You too. Thank you. After truck is turned off, why would air dump into the one box? That is the purge valve. I just answered that. Disc brakes. What's up, Jordan? Only buy 2016 and up on Cascadias. Thanks for sharing that. Transport says only buy a Cascadia that's 2016 and above. Adam 2013 DD13 just hit 600. Congratulations. Found a bit of metal in a fuel filter, idle functioning. Should I change the fuel pump before it fails? If you do have metal in the fuel pump, I would change the fuel filter or fuel pump and change the fuel filters and check out the fuel tank to make sure you don't have any metal in there. Change the fuel pump is what Transport says. Good job, Transport. I appreciate you joining us. Add the fuel pressure, fuel line, fuel hose as well is what he's saying. How often do we change the fuel filters on a Cat? On a Cat, Cat is an older engine. These older engines, everything that I mentioned about 10,000 to 15,000 miles, these are all engines that have high pressure fuel systems, newer engines. A Cat, you could probably follow the recommended OEM and you'd be all right with the Cats. They run a lot. They're a lot more solid, but they're hard to find. Shout out to Cat. Cat's got a lot of off highway equipment. That's probably, that's why they're not on highway right now. They're not manufacturing highway engines. They have enough work off highway. If you see all the equipment that's on my on the project for our new building, you can see it. It's all Caterpillar, high pressure fuel lines. Yep, I appreciate that question. What oil do you recommend on 2007 ISX Cummins after a complete overhaul? You can use anything that's CK4 and above. You can use 1030. You can use 1540. That's a 2007. You can stick with 1540. I know some guys have mentioned in my videos, hey, 1540 is no longer approved on newer engines. They are, as long as they're CK approved, guys. So keep all that in mind. I paid $13K for a 2013 Cascadia. I had the truck checked out after I purchased it. We noticed the engine brake light does come on after hitting the switch. Checking fuses now, not sensor. Okay. Well, I mean, it could be something. It could be a bad solenoid. Could be something going on. Check out the maintenance on that. If you haven't had the valves adjusted and the Jake brakes adjusted, they may be working and they may be out of adjustment. So keep that in mind. Appreciate that question. I appreciate that comment, and thanks for all the support there, Transport, for answering those questions. You even got a thank you there. Have you ever had any trucks come in that were diagnosed with diesel bug? No. I don't know what that is, but I am going to look that up. I wonder what that is. Can I replace my both NOx sensors and way cheaper aftermarket ones instead of the dealer? Well, I'm going to tell you something about NOx sensors. When you got to understand the after treatment system. Just replacing your NOx sensors, yeah, eventually you're going to have to replace your NOx sensors. But if you have something more upstream, or if you have something that's not dosing correctly, like your DEF system, or if the code is reading an open circuit, something like that, you could still be having this problem after replacing those sensors. So it's very important to understand, and I mentioned this before, you want to test the parts before condemning them. Yeah, most problems you're going to have NOx sensors, but that's not a guarantee that that's going to get rid of your problem if you do replace your NOx sensors. So hopefully I was able to answer your question. Good question. Thanks for answering, and thanks for asking that question. I might bring it Thursday. You did my brakes and 3 box changes a couple weeks ago. I appreciate that. Yeah, bring it by. Just schedule the appointment. We'll check it out. Park light brake will not show on gauge cluster. Already changed the park brake switch. If the park brake is not showing on a gauge cluster, is it coming on when you key on? Because when you key on, thanks for the super chat there, Adam, $5. Thanks for the super chat from Adam. Does 2010 Freightliner come from factory with a DEF? No, it doesn't. I don't think the DEF actually started coming out on the Cascadias until 2011, 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong there, chat. I know somebody out there probably gonna know, but 2000. If it is a Cascadia, I take that back. That is a DEF. That is a DEF system. I'm sorry about that. That is a DEF system. You're gonna be able to see if it has a DEF system. If you're gonna check, you can check by the battery box. You open up the battery box, and you're gonna have a blue cap. and I don't exactly have when the years are going to be there. Sorry if I don't have the exact answer for that. I do appreciate that super chat, but I don't have an exact answer. Yes, it comes on to the first key on. Okay, if the key comes on, going back to the question, Hardy, that means something else is going on. I would check if you have a laptop, hook up a laptop to see if you can get the indication reading on there. Oh, okay. Let me see what else. Okay. Can that runs a fuel pump that happened to me and the metal came from it. Okay, yeah. Most of the time, if you have metal in your fuel pump or in your fuel filters, it's going to be the fuel pump. I know a lot of people who have bought NOx from Amazon and major headaches. Okay, check out Transport. Transport's here. Transport says major headaches on those NOx sensors from Amazon. Those aftermarket NOx will throw other random codes and make you chase ghost codes. OEMs are the best. And yeah, you know what? OEM only, and don't do rebuilds. Guys, I want to mention to you, sometimes those rebuilds coming from the dealers, coming from the vendors, are still going to give you faults. And this is going to be with the older after treatment systems. It's probably going to be with your 2010. And I can't believe I didn't recall this because we're talking newer engines, but 2010 is still a good new engine. But as I mentioned, the DEF, you want to make sure, I lost my train of thought on that. We were talking about DEF and we were talking about replacing the NOx, and you're right. Thank you for sharing that. I'll come back to that. I'm sorry if I lost my train of thought on that. Some have good luck and some risk others. We're talking about the OEM parts. Okay, so remanufactured parts. I've seen problems with remanufactured parts on injectors, on after treatment systems. On the 2010, it's going to be air over DEF, and we're talking the meter and valve. And this is what I was talking. This is where I lost my train of thought. The meter and valve. We've replaced reman meter and valves back to back and still had the same problems. And it didn't actually fix it until we went with a original OEM, not a new one, not a reman. So yeah, mine does not have DEF on gauges or DEF system, but have recently bought them. Okay, so yeah, some of them don't. Some of them are only going to have the actual DPF filter only, but not DEF. So if you look at that particular year, there's right at a certain year model where some of them just had the DPF filter installed. They had the EGR cooler already on them, and they just added the DPF filter. Later on, they added the SCR system, which was more downstream, and then they came out with the one-box system, and that's what most systems are now. They did originally come out as separate systems. Volvo is the same way. If you look at the new Volvos, they have the one-box system now. That they're in one box and they're not separate anymore. So yeah, it just depends on your system, Adam. The older systems evolved. But most of the new systems are going to be one box systems. So I appreciate that question, and I appreciate your feedback there and sharing your information there. Transport, I know you probably bought those from Amazon, and I appreciate you maybe saving somebody some headache. Yes, comes out when it first key on. Okay, they come out late 2009. 2009 came out late DEF. I appreciate that comment there, John. Thanks for sharing that. Adam, I want to thank you for taking the time. And I've been learning a lot from your videos, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that comment there, Taurus. I appreciate that a lot. Regen button, but no, Adam, go to the driver's side, look under the hood, and check for black colored tank and blue cap on the batteries. I hate Volvo for getting in the one box system. Well, you know, they're all going to the one box system. And some of them added the turbine. I'm going to be releasing a new video coming out probably on Wednesday. Hopefully I can get it all wrapped up for you guys. But it's a good informational video about the D13 Volvo. So I'm really excited about getting that out to you guys. But I am going to wrap everything up. It looks like I got caught up to everybody's questions, and I think I was able to get basically the topic out there on why changing these fuel filters is very important, guys. I don't want you to have to get a fuel pump changed. You know, these are not cheap. They're not cheap, guys. They're about as big as a starter. They're not the same price as a starter, but the labor, and they bury them in there, guys. So keep all this in mind whenever checking your intervals. Let me see. I appreciate everybody coming out and checking out on us. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I got to finish up some more videos so that I can get some more content out to you guys. Shout out to everybody that's joined us today. Make sure to like and share the video, guys, so we can share this content, share this knowledge out to everybody. If you'd like to share your information, leave it in the comments below. I appreciate everybody that's joined us on chat today, and I will see you guys next week, guys. Everybody be safe. Make sure you guys make sure you guys stay safe and stay warm. Check out those apps whenever you're going up north, guys, because it's getting cold, and this pandemic is not going to slow down, guys. So make sure to keep an eye out. Don't get too carried away with it. I know it's kind of crazy, but just, get the information out. Make sure you wash your hands. Use hand sanitizer. Keep it in your truck. Use Lysol, guys. I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate everybody that's joined us today. And I'm going to let you guys go, and I will see you guys next week. And until next time, guys, be safe.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.